The baby's heartbeat is strong and healthy. Maya Chen pressed her hand against her barely visible bump, tears streaming down her face as Dr. Rodriguez's words echoed through the ultrasound room. But these weren't tears of joy, they were tears of devastating realization. Because 20 minutes ago, she discovered the text messages on David's phone. 20 minutes ago, her world had shattered into 1,000 pieces. Missing you already. Can't wait until you're free from all this family obligation nonsense. V. Soon, my love. Very soon. D. The ultrasound gel felt cold against her skin, but not as cold as the truth freezing her blood. Family obligation nonsense. That's what their marriage was to him. That's what their baby was. Mrs. Chen? Are you all right? Dr. Rodriguez's concerned voice seemed to come from underwater. Maya forced a smile, the same smile she'd perfected over 8 years of marriage to David. Just emotional. You know how pregnancy hormones are. But inside, her mind was racing. Victoria Castellanos. She knew that name. David's new business partner, who'd been requiring so many late-night meetings. So many weekend conferences. So many times when he'd come home smelling like expensive perfume that definitely wasn't Maya's. I need to get these images printed for you, Dr. Rodriguez said, stepping toward the door. Give me just a moment. The second the door clicked shut, Maya's phone buzzed. David's name flashed on the screen. How did the appointment go? Hoping for good news about our little miracle. Love you. Our little miracle. Maya stared at the words until they blurred. How could he text her about their baby while he was planning to leave them both? How could he call it a miracle when he'd been calling it an obligation to another woman? Another buzz. This time, an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Park, East Entrance. 1 hour. Come alone. Victoria. Maya's hands trembled as she read the message twice, then 3 times. Victoria knew about the baby. Victoria knew about the appointment, which meant David had told her everything. The ultrasound room suddenly felt suffocating. Maya wiped the gel from her stomach with shaking hands, her mind spinning with questions that made her nauseous. How long had Victoria been watching her? How much did she know about their life together? About their plans for the baby? About the nursery David had helped her paint just last weekend, laughing as he got more paint on himself than the walls? Dr. Rodriguez returned with the printed ultrasound images. Here's your baby's first portrait. Everything looks perfect, strong heartbeat, good development for 12 weeks. Maya took the images, staring at the tiny form that looked more like a seahorse than a human. This was her child. Her baby. David's baby. And somewhere across town, Victoria Castellanos was making plans that threatened to destroy everything. Thank you, Maya whispered, tucking the images into her purse next to her phone, which buzzed again. Don't even think about ignoring me. I know you saw the messages. I know you know the truth. If you want to protect what matters most to you, you'll be there. V. Maya's breath caught. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Protect what matters most to you. Victoria wasn't just talking about David anymore. She was talking about the baby. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another story that might just change how you see the world around you. I'm so glad you're here with me today as we dive into Maya's journey. A story about love, betrayal, and the fierce protective instinct of a mother-to-be. Standing in that sterile medical corridor, Maya felt the weight of impossible choices crushing down on her. Go to the meeting and face the woman who'd stolen her husband's heart, or ignore the threats and hope Victoria would simply disappear. But something in those messages told her Victoria Castellanos wasn't the disappearing type. Maya's phone rang. David's smiling face filled the screen. The photo from their honeymoon in Santorini, when she believed they were building something unbreakable together. Hey beautiful, his voice was warm, loving, exactly the same tone he'd used that morning when he'd kissed her goodbye and promised to pick up prenatal vitamins on his way home. How's our baby? Perfect, Maya said, the lie burning her throat. Everything's perfect. I knew it would be. Listen, I've got another late meeting tonight. This new client is really demanding, but I'll be home by 10. Maybe we can look at cribs online. Another lie. So smooth, so practiced. Maya wondered how many other wives received calls just like this while their husbands made other plans with other women. That sounds wonderful, she managed. I love you, Maya. You and the baby, you're everything to me. The line went dead, leaving Maya staring at her reflection in the hospital's polished elevator doors. Dark circles under her eyes. Pale skin. The glow everyone talked about during pregnancy nowhere to be found. Instead, She looked like someone who'd just discovered her entire life was built on quicksand. 47 minutes until the meeting. 47 minutes to decide whether to face the truth or keep living the beautiful lie David had crafted so carefully around her. But as Maya stepped into the parking garage and saw her car, the sensible sedan David had insisted they buy for, when the baby comes, she realized she'd already made her choice. Because whatever Victoria Castellanos wanted to say, whatever threats she wanted to make, Maya needed to look into the eyes of the woman who was willing to destroy a family. She needed to understand what kind of person could look at a pregnant woman and see an obstacle instead of a human being. 26 minutes later, Maya sat in her car at the edge of Riverside Park, watching the east entrance through her rearview mirror. Her hands hadn't stopped shaking since leaving the hospital. Every few minutes, she pressed her palm against her stomach, feeling for some sign of the life growing inside her. Some reassurance that she was fighting for something real. A black SUV pulled up exactly at the appointed time. Maya's breath caught as the driver's door opened and Victoria Castellanos stepped out. She was nothing like Maya had imagined. Where Maya had expected a femme fatale, she saw a woman who looked ordinary. Pretty, yes, but not stunning. Professional, but not glamorous. Victoria wore a simple navy dress and practical heels, her blonde hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She could have been any of the 100 women Maya passed on the street every day. Except for her eyes. Even from a distance, Maya could see the intensity burning there. The kind of focus that spoke of someone who'd identified exactly what she wanted and would accept no obstacles. Victoria checked her phone, then looked directly at Maya's car. Their eyes met through the windshield, and Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Victoria smiled, not friendly, not cruel, just knowing. As if she could see straight through the car, through Maya's carefully constructed composure, into the terrified, betrayed woman beneath. Maya's phone buzzed with a text. "Get out of the car. We have a lot to discuss." This was it. The moment that would change everything. Maya could still drive away, could still pretend this meeting never happened, could still live in the bubble of her marriage for a few more weeks or months until David worked up the courage to leave on his own terms. But the baby deserved better than a father who called them an obligation. And Maya deserved better than a husband who made promises to two different women. She opened the car door and stepped into the crisp autumn air, her heart pounding so hard she was sure Victoria could hear it across the parking lot. Victoria approached slowly, her heels clicking against the asphalt with mathematical precision. When she was close enough to speak without shouting, she stopped. "Maya Chun," Victoria said, her voice steady and calm. "Mother-to-be. Devoted wife. Complete fool." Maya's hands clenched into fists. "What do you want?" Victoria's smile widened, and for the first time, Maya saw something dangerous flicker behind those ordinary features. "I want," Victoria said, "to make you an offer you can't refuse." "An offer?" Maya's voice came out stronger than she felt. "What could you possibly offer me?" Victoria glanced around the empty parking lot, then gestured toward a park bench beneath a sprawling oak tree. "Privacy. Truth. And maybe, if you're smart, a way for both of us to get what we actually need." Maya followed, every instinct screaming at her to run. But something in Victoria's tone wasn't what she'd expected. There was no smugness, no cruel satisfaction. Instead, Victoria sounded almost tired. As they settled on opposite ends of the bench, Victoria pulled out her phone and scrolled through messages. "Before we start, I need you to understand something about your husband." She turned the screen toward Maya. "These aren't just recent. We've been together for 2 years." The messages filled the screen, hundreds of them. Maya caught glimpses of intimate conversations, inside jokes, plans for weekend getaways. Her hands began to shake as she realized the scope of David's deception. Their anniversary dinner last year, when he'd seemed so distant, he'd been texting Victoria. The weekend he'd claimed to be at a work conference in Denver. Vacation photos with Victoria at a ski resort. 2 years, Maya whispered. "But we've been trying for a baby for 2 years." "I know." Victoria's voice was surprisingly gentle. "He told me you were having fertility issues. That it was putting strain on your marriage. That you'd become obsessed with getting pregnant and had stopped seeing him as anything more than a potential father." Maya's head snapped up. "That's not. We wanted this baby together. He was the one who suggested we start trying sooner rather than later." For the first time, Victoria looked uncertain. "He said you were pressuring him. That you'd threaten to leave if he didn't give you a child." "I never." Maya stopped, her mind racing back through countless conversations. David encouraging her to track her ovulation. David suggesting they see a fertility specialist when they didn't conceive immediately. David holding her while she cried after each negative pregnancy test, whispering that they'd keep trying as long as it took. He lied to you, Maya said slowly. About me. About our marriage. About everything. Victoria's composed mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something vulnerable underneath. He wouldn't do that. David isn't a liar. Despite everything, Maya almost laughed. Victoria, he's been lying to both of us for 2 years. What makes you think you're getting the truth when I'm not? They sat in silence, both processing this revelation. Maya studied Victoria's profile, the slight tremor in her hands, the way she kept checking her phone as if expecting David to call and explain everything away. Tell me about him, Maya said quietly. The David you know. Victoria's face softened. He's brilliant, passionate about his work, about making the world better. He listens when I talk about my dreams of starting a non-profit for underprivileged kids. He remembers that I like my coffee with oat milk, not cream. She stopped abruptly. Why are you asking me this? Because the David you're describing sounds exactly like the man I married 8 years ago. Maya pressed her hand to her stomach. The man who proposed to me in this exact park, actually. Right over there by the fountain. Victoria followed Maya's gaze, her face paling. He brought me here too. 6 months ago. Said it was his favorite place to think. The betrayal hit Maya like a physical blow. Even their special places weren't sacred. David had recycled their memories, their moments, their love story with another woman. I need to show you something, Maya said, pulling out her phone. She scrolled to a photo from their wedding day, David in his tuxedo, spinning her around as cherry blossoms fell like snow around them. This was taken 8 years ago. Look at his face. Victoria stared at the image, and Maya saw recognition flicker in her eyes. The same expression David wore when he looked at Victoria. The same joy, the same love, the same promise of forever. He's not choosing between us, Maya continued, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. He's keeping us both. You get the romance, the excitement, the man who's free to dream about the future. I get the responsibility, the daily reality, the man who comes home every night because he has to. Victoria's phone buzzed. Both women looked down to see David's name on the screen. Missing you today. Wish I could cancel this client dinner and spend the evening with you instead. Soon we'll have all the time in the world. D. Maya felt the final piece of her marriage crumble. While she'd been getting their baby's first ultrasound, David had been planning an evening with Victoria. While she'd been imagining showing him the pictures, he'd been wishing he could be anywhere else. How did you find out? Victoria asked quietly. He left his phone on the counter this morning. It buzzed with your text about missing him. I thought it was work until I saw the heart emoji. Maya wiped her eyes. 8 years of marriage, and I never thought to check his phone. I trusted him completely. I didn't know about you at first, Victoria said. When we met at that conference in Chicago, he said he was divorced. Recently divorced, trying to figure out what came next. It wasn't until 6 months in that he admitted he was still married, but he said it was basically over. Just waiting for the right time to make it official. Chicago. Maya's heart sank further. He told me that conference was canceled. He stayed home that weekend, brought me flowers, made dinner. Said he wanted to focus on us, on starting our family. Victoria stared at her hands. That was the weekend we first slept together. The image hit Maya like a slap. David making love to Victoria in some Chicago hotel room, then coming home to make love to her, telling them both they were his everything. How had she never seen it? How had she never noticed the duplicity? There's more, Victoria said, her voice barely above a whisper. Things you need to know before you decide what to do next. Maya braced herself. What things? David's been making promises to me. About our future together. About what happens after. Victoria glanced at Maya's stomach. After the baby comes. What kind of promises? Victoria pulled up another message thread, this one more recent. Look at the dates. These are from after you got pregnant. Maya read in growing horror as David laid out a plan in painstaking detail. How he'd wait until the baby was born, establish paternity and custody rights, then file for divorce. How he'd move in with Victoria while maintaining shared custody. How they'd build a life together while Maya raised their child as a single mother. He's not planning to choose, Maya said numbly. He wants to have both. A family he can visit on weekends and a wife who thinks she won the prize. I didn't agree to this, Victoria said quickly. When he started talking about staying married until after the baby, I told him that wasn't what I wanted. I don't want to be someone's side piece while they play family with someone else. But you're here, threatening me. Victoria's composure finally cracked. Because I'm pregnant too. The words hung in the air between them like a bomb waiting to explode. Maya felt the world tilt on its axis as the full scope of David's betrayal became clear. How far along? Maya whispered. 6 weeks. Victoria's voice broke. He doesn't know yet. I found out yesterday, right after I saw his texts about your ultrasound appointment. About how excited he was to see his baby for the first time. Maya stared at this woman, this other pregnant woman, and felt something shift inside her chest. Not quite sympathy, but recognition. They were both victims of David's elaborate web of lies. Both carrying his children. Both believing they were the center of his world. He told me he wanted to wait until after your divorce was final to start trying for kids, Victoria continued. Said he wanted our children to be born into a clean slate, not a messy situation. I believed him. I've been taking precautions, but last month... She gestured helplessly. Accidents happen. What do you want from me? Maya asked, though she was beginning to understand. I want him to choose. Really choose. Not this elaborate plan where he gets everything he wants while we both get half a life. Victoria turned to face Maya directly. I came here to tell you to let him go. To stop fighting for a marriage that's already over. But now you realize he's not worth fighting for. Victoria nodded slowly. Now I realize we're both fighting for a man who doesn't exist. The David I fell in love with wouldn't string along 2 women for 2 years. The David you married wouldn't plan his exit strategy while holding your hand during ultrasounds. Maya's phone rang. David's face smiled up at her from the screen. That same photo from their honeymoon when she believed they were soulmates. Answer it, Victoria said. But put it on speaker. It's time we both heard what he really sounds like when he thinks he's safe. Maya's finger hovered over the answer button. Once she took this step, there would be no going back to the comfortable illusion of her marriage. No more pretending that David's late nights were really about work. No more believing that their love story was real. But the baby deserved a father who chose them. And Maya deserved a husband who didn't treat their marriage like an obligation. She answered the call and hit speaker. Hey, sweetheart. David's warm, loving voice filled the space between them. I know you're probably still processing the appointment. How are you feeling? Maya looked at Victoria, who was staring at the phone with tears in her eyes. Even now, even knowing everything, David's voice still had the power to make them both want to believe. I'm fine, Maya managed. The baby's healthy. That's amazing. Listen, I've been thinking, maybe we should start telling people soon. Your parents, my parents. Start making this real. Making what real, David? Our family. Our life together. Everything we've been working toward. His voice was so sincere, so full of love and promise. I can't wait to be a dad. Can't wait to build this beautiful life with you. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth, muffling a sob. Maya felt her own tears threatening as the full cruelty of David's deception hit her. He wasn't just lying about the affair. He was lying about their entire future. Making promises to her that he'd already broken in his heart. David, Maya said carefully, what if things were different? What if there were complications? What kind of complications? What if someone else needed you? Someone else was counting on you. There was a pause. When David spoke again, his voice was slightly cooler. Maya, you're the only one I need. You and our baby. Nothing else matters to me. Maya looked at Victoria, who was shaking her head slowly, tears streaming down her face. I need to go, Maya said. I'll see you tonight. I love you, David said. Both of you. My girls. The line went dead, leaving Maya and Victoria sitting in the gathering dusk, both carrying his children, both realizing they'd never really known him at all. What do we do now? Victoria whispered. Maya pressed both hands to her stomach, feeling the tiny life growing inside her. Now, she said, we figure out how to protect our children from the man who's supposed to love them most. We need to see his computer, Maya said suddenly, the words tumbling out before she'd fully formed the thought. Victoria looked up from her phone, which had been buzzing with increasingly concerned messages from David. What? His laptop? At home. If he's been planning this for months, there will be evidence. Documents. Maybe other women. Maya's voice grew stronger with each word. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with before we decide how to handle this. Maya, Victoria stopped, considering. That's actually smart. But how? Won't he be home soon? He's at his client dinner, Maya said, making air quotes. Which means he'll be out until at least 10, possibly later if he's actually with you. He's not with me tonight. I told him I needed space to think about our future. Victoria's laugh was bitter. I thought I was being dramatic about him taking too long to leave you. Turns out I was being naive about him planning to never leave you at all. Maya pulled out her car keys. My house. 20 minutes. We go through everything, his computer, his files, his phone records. Whatever we find, we face together. This is insane, Victoria said, but she was already standing. If he comes home early, then we'll deal with that too. Maya felt something fierce and unfamiliar rising in her chest. For 8 years, she'd been the understanding wife, the patient partner, the woman who never questioned David's explanations. But that woman had been protecting a marriage that didn't exist. I'm done being kept in the dark about my own life. They drove separately through the darkening streets, Maya's hands gripping the steering wheel as her mind raced through possibilities. What else didn't she know about David? How deep did his deception run? And what would they do with whatever they found? Maya's house sat in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where young families pushed strollers and planned barbecues and believed in happily ever after. She'd chosen it specifically for the children she'd hoped to have someday. Now, pulling into the driveway with David's mistress behind her, the white picket fence felt like a mockery. Nice house, Victoria said as they approached the front door. Her voice was carefully neutral, but Maya caught her looking at the flower boxes David had installed last spring, the swing set he'd bought for someday, sitting hopefully in the backyard. He wanted to wait until we were pregnant to buy it, Maya said, unlocking the door. Said he wanted our children to have the kind of childhood he never did, stable, secure, rooted. She gestured Victoria inside. Turns out he was just making sure his assets were tied up in a way that would make divorce complicated. The house felt different with Victoria in it. Maya saw it through her eyes, the wedding photos lining the hallway, the vacation souvenirs carefully displayed, the visible evidence of 8 years of shared life. But also the gaps she'd never noticed before. No photos of David at work events. No personal items that seemed truly his rather than theirs. His office is upstairs, Maya said, leading the way past the nursery they'd started preparing. Victoria paused at the doorway, taking in the partially painted walls, the crib still in its box. Yellow, Victoria observed quietly. We wanted to be surprised. Maya's voice caught. David said he didn't care about the gender as long as the baby was healthy and happy. He told me he'd always wanted a daughter. Someone he could teach to be strong and independent. Victoria touched the doorframe gently. He has very specific ideas about raising girls. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of ideas? That they need to learn early that men will disappoint them. That they should never depend on anyone completely. That love is something you take, not something you wait to receive. Victoria's face was troubled. At the time, I thought he was being protective. Now it sounds like he was describing himself. They continued to David's office, a small room lined with law books and diplomas. Maya had always been proud of his success, the way he'd built his practice from nothing. Now she wondered what corners he'd cut, what lies he'd told, what other lives he'd compartmentalized to achieve his goals. David's laptop sat closed on his desk. Maya hesitated for a moment. Once she opened it, she'd be crossing a line she could never uncross. Then she thought about the baby, about the kind of father David was planning to be, and her hesitation vanished. The screen prompted for a password. Maya tried their anniversary, his birthday, her name. Nothing worked. Try mine, Victoria said softly. Victoria 0412. The screen unlocked immediately. Maya felt sick as she stared at the desktop, her husband's computer, protected by his mistress's name and birthday. April 12th, Maya said numbly. That's when you met. Our anniversary. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. He told me it was the most important day of his life. Maya clicked on his email first, scanning through business correspondence until she found a folder labeled Personal Planning. Inside were dozens of documents: divorce attorney consultations, custody law research, financial planning spreadsheets that calculated exactly how much he'd pay in child support versus how much he'd save by not supporting a full-time wife. He's been planning this for over a year, Maya said, scrolling through legal documents. Look at this. He consulted 3 different divorce attorneys about the best strategy for maintaining assets while establishing joint custody. Victoria leaned over her shoulder, reading. January 15th. That's 2 weeks after I told him I loved him. But it was the next folder that made Maya's blood run cold. Financial projections, 2 household scenario. She opened it to find detailed spreadsheets calculating the costs of supporting 2 separate households. Maya and the baby in the suburban house, Victoria and her eventual children in a downtown apartment. David had planned out every expense, every timeline, every scenario where he could maintain both relationships indefinitely. Look at this note, Victoria said, pointing to a comment in the margin. Subject A expects traditional marriage model. Subject B more flexible about modern arrangements. Proceed with concurrent timeline through Subject A's childbirth. Then reassess based on emotional stability of both parties. Maya stared at the clinical language. Subject A, Subject B. David had reduced them to variables in his personal life equation. There's more, Victoria said, clicking on another folder. Investment planning. The documents inside were even worse. David had been moving money into accounts that only he could access, using Maya's pregnancy and presumed emotional instability as justification for taking control of their finances. He'd already transferred most of their joint savings into investments under his name only. He's been stealing from you, Victoria said, her voice sharp with anger. Moving your money so you'll be financially dependent when he leaves. Maya's hands shook as she opened the final folder, contingency plans. Inside were detailed profiles on both women, their emotional triggers, their support systems, their likely reactions to various scenarios. David had analyzed them like case studies, predicting how they'd respond to abandonment, betrayal, financial pressure. Subject A shows strong maternal instincts and fear of abandonment, Maya read aloud. Most likely to accept part-time arrangement if presented as what's best for the baby. Subject B shows independence and career ambition. Will accept non-traditional arrangement if given financial security and freedom to pursue goals. He's been manipulating us, Victoria said, her voice rising. Every conversation, every decision, he's been pushing us toward exactly what he wanted. Maya kept reading, her horror growing. In event of Subject B pregnancy, delay revelation until after Subject A delivery. Use Subject A's postpartum vulnerability to establish new normal. Subject B can be convinced that shared custody arrangement benefits everyone involved. You weren't supposed to get pregnant yet, Maya realized. He had this all timed out. I'd have the baby, be vulnerable and desperate to keep him involved, and then he'd introduce you as his new girlfriend, who was understanding about his family obligations. Victoria sank into David's chair, her face pale. And I'd be so grateful to finally have him openly that I'd accept whatever scraps of his attention he offered. A new email notification popped up on the screen. Maya clicked it without thinking, then immediately wished she hadn't. It was from a private investigator David had hired. Surveillance complete on both subjects. Victoria Castellanos observed meeting with Maya Chun at Riverside Park today, 3:47 to 5:23 p.m. Appears to have been planned encounter. Both subjects appeared emotionally distressed. Recommend immediate intervention before situation escalates. Photos attached. Detective Morrison. Maya's blood turned to ice. He's been having us watched. Victoria grabbed the laptop, scrolling through attached photos. There they were on the park bench, sharing secrets, crying together, looking exactly like 2 women who'd discovered they'd been betrayed by the same man. He knows, Victoria said. He's known this whole time. He probably orchestrated my getting your number somehow. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from David. Hey beautiful, finishing up dinner early. Be home in 20 minutes. Can't wait to see you and talk about our future. Have a surprise that's going to change everything. D. He's coming home, Maya whispered. Now. Victoria's phone buzzed immediately after. We need to talk. Tonight. Meet me at Maya's house in 15 minutes. Time to stop playing games. D. They stared at each other across David's desk, his elaborate deception spread out between them in black and white. He'd manipulated them into meeting. He'd been watching them discover his betrayal. And now he was coming to implement whatever contingency plan he'd prepared for this exact scenario. We have to go, Victoria said. We have to leave right now. No. Maya's voice was steady, determined. I'm done running from my own life. This is my house. My marriage. My baby's future. She stood up, her hand protective over her stomach. If David wants to play games, he can play them in the open. Maya, you don't understand. If he's been planning this for a year, if he's been having us watched, then it ends tonight. Maya pulled out her phone and scrolled to a number she'd never thought she'd need. We're not subject A and subject B anymore. We're two women who are about to become mothers, and we're going to protect our children from a man who thinks they're pawns in his personal chess game. Who are you calling? Someone who can make sure David's contingency plans don't work out the way he expects. Maya hit dial. Hello, Attorney Murphy? This is Maya Chin. I need an emergency consultation about divorce and child custody. Tonight. Victoria stared at her. Maya, what are you doing? What I should have done the moment I found those text messages. Maya's voice was calm, but her eyes blazed with determination. I'm taking back control of my life. Headlights swept across the living room window. David's car pulling into the driveway. He's here, Victoria whispered. Maya grabbed Victoria's hand. Whatever happens next, we face it together. No more lies. No more manipulation. No more letting him control the narrative. The front door opened downstairs. David's voice called out, warm and loving and completely false. Maya? Honey, I'm home. And I brought someone who wants to meet you. Maya and Victoria looked at each other. This was it. The point of no return. Whatever David had planned, whatever surprise he thought would change everything, they were about to face it with their eyes wide open. Ready? Maya asked. Victoria squeezed her hand. Let's go protect our babies. They walked toward the stairs together, two women who'd been enemies an hour ago, now united by something stronger than rivalry. The fierce, protective love of mothers who would not let their children inherit their father's legacy of lies. Downstairs, David was waiting, and Maya was done being anyone's subject. Maya and Victoria reached the top of the stairs just as David's voice called out again. But this time he wasn't alone. Maya, sweetheart, come down here. I've brought someone very special to meet you. The women exchanged glances. Maya peered over the banister and felt her world tilt further off its axis. David stood in their living room with an older woman in an expensive suit, her silver hair pulled back in a professional chignon. She carried a leather briefcase and had the unmistakable air of authority. Dr. Patricia Reeves, David was saying to the woman. Maya's been under a lot of stress with the pregnancy. I'm worried about her emotional stability, especially after some concerning behavior today. Maya's blood turned to ice. Dr. Reeves. She recognized the name from David's computer files. One of the contingency plans had mentioned psychological evaluation. Victoria grabbed Maya's arm, whispering urgently, He's brought a psychiatrist. He's going to try to have you declared mentally unfit. Maya. David's voice carried up the stairs, honey sweet and concerned. Could you come down, please? Dr. Reeves just wants to chat. Maya felt trapped between the evidence of David's deception upstairs and his latest manipulation downstairs. But she also felt something else, a steely determination that surprised her with its strength. Stay here, she whispered to Victoria. Hidden. If this goes badly, you're my witness. I'm not leaving you alone with him. You have to. He doesn't know you're here yet. That's our advantage. Maya descended the stairs slowly, each step feeling like a choice between her old life and an uncertain future. David smiled warmly as she appeared, the picture of a concerned husband. Only now Maya could see the calculation behind his eyes. There she is, David said, moving to embrace her. Dr. Reeves, this is my beautiful wife Maya. Dr. Reeves studied Maya with the intensity of someone paid to find problems. Mrs. Chun, your husband is concerned about some erratic behavior today. Following him, making accusations, seeming paranoid about his work relationships. I wasn't following him, Maya said carefully. I was. She's been obsessing over my business associations, David interrupted gently. Reading too much into innocent communications. You know how pregnancy hormones can affect judgment. Maya felt the trap closing around her. Every word she said to defend herself would sound like the protests of an unstable woman. David had orchestrated this perfectly, bringing in a professional who would see exactly what he wanted her to see. Mrs. Chun, Dr. Reeves continued, your husband mentioned you've been making claims about affairs, secret relationships. Has anyone else witnessed these supposed inappropriate communications? Maya thought about Victoria hiding upstairs, but bringing her down would only prove David's point about her seeking out conspiracies. I saw the messages myself. Could you show them to me? Maya's heart sank. They were on his phone. I don't have access. Because they don't exist, David said sadly. Maya, I know this is hard to hear, but you've been imagining things. Creating stories to explain why you've been feeling disconnected from me lately. Dr. Reeves made a note on her pad. Pregnancy-induced paranoia is more common than people think. The hormonal changes, the stress of impending parenthood. I'm not paranoid, Maya said, her voice rising. David, show her your phone. Show her the messages from Victoria. David pulled out his phone with the confidence of a man who'd prepared for this moment. Of course, sweetheart. Dr. Reeves, you'll see there are no inappropriate messages here. Maya watched in horror as David scrolled through his phone. The messages were gone. All of them. He'd cleaned out every trace of Victoria's existence. I see business communications with a Victoria Castellanos, Dr. Reeves observed. Completely professional. Nothing inappropriate. He deleted them, Maya said desperately. Earlier today, they were full of. Maya. David's voice was infinitely patient, the tone of a man dealing with a sick wife. You're scaring me. These paranoid fantasies, this fixation on creating drama where none exists. I'm not creating drama. Victoria Castellanos is your mistress. You've been planning to leave me. You have documents upstairs proving. Documents? Dr. Reeves looked alarmed. Mrs. Chen, have you been going through your husband's private files? His work materials? Maya realized too late that she'd walked directly into David's trap. Everything she said to prove his deception only made her sound more unhinged. David, Maya said, her voice shaking with rage and desperation. Tell her the truth. Tell her about Chicago. Tell her about the 2 years of lies. Tell her about your plan to keep us both while taking our children. David's face showed perfectly calibrated hurt and concern. Dr. Reeves, this is exactly what I'm worried about. These elaborate stories, this invasion of my privacy, this paranoid certainty that everyone is conspiring against her. I'm not paranoid, Maya shouted. I have proof. What proof? Dr. Reeves asked gently. Maya's mind raced. The computer files, the messages, Victoria herself, but David had clearly anticipated this moment. How many of the files had he already deleted? How much evidence had he destroyed while they were at the park? The surveillance, Maya said suddenly. You hired a private investigator to watch us. Detective Morrison. There are photos. David's mask slipped for just a fraction of a second, so quickly that Dr. Reeves missed it. But Maya saw the flash of genuine surprise, the momentary calculation as he adjusted his strategy. Maya, David said carefully, I have no idea what you're talking about. But Maya had seen his tell. The way his left eye twitched when he lied, something she'd noticed over 8 years of marriage but never understood until now. You're lying, Maya said with growing confidence. You know exactly what I'm talking about because you're the one who hired him. Dr. Reeves looked between them with increasing concern. Mr. Chen, is there any truth to these accusations about surveillance? David hesitated for a moment too long. Absolutely not. Maya is clearly. Clearly what? A new voice cut through the tension. Victoria appeared at the top of the stairs, David's laptop in her hands. She descended slowly, her eyes fixed on David's face with laser intensity. Victoria, David breathed, his careful composure finally cracking. What are you doing here? Apparently, Victoria said, reaching the bottom of the stairs, I'm being a witness to my boyfriend's elaborate plan to gaslight his pregnant wife into a mental institution. Dr. Reeves looked confused. I'm sorry, who are you? I'm Victoria Castellanos, David's girlfriend of 2 years. The woman whose existence Maya is supposedly hallucinating. Victoria opened the laptop and turned it toward Dr. Reeves. These are the files Maya was talking about. David's detailed plans for managing 2 pregnant women simultaneously. Maya watched David's face cycle through shock, anger, and calculation before settling on a new strategy. Victoria, what are you doing? David's voice was pained, betrayed. We agreed. We agreed on nothing, Victoria snapped. You lied to me the same way you lied to Maya. But unlike Maya, I don't have 8 years of conditioning to make me doubt my own perceptions. Dr. Reeves studied the laptop screen, her professional demeanor shifting to something harder. Mr. Chen, these documents appear to show detailed planning for managing multiple relationships. Subject A and Subject B. I assume these refer to your wife and Ms. Castellanos. You don't understand, David said, his charm dissolving into something desperate. It's complicated. I love them both. I was trying to find a way to manipulate us both, Maya finished. To keep us fighting each other instead of questioning you. Victoria scrolled to another file. Dr. Reeves, you might be particularly interested in this folder labeled Psychological Manipulation Strategies. David's been researching exactly how to convince people they're losing their minds. Maya felt vindicated and sick simultaneously. You've been gaslighting me. Deliberately. Maya, no. David stepped toward her, but she backed away. I was protecting you. Both of you. From a situation too complex for our simple female minds to understand? Victoria's voice was ice cold. David, I have a master's degree in psychology. Maya has a PhD in biochemistry. We're not children who need your protection from reality. Dr. Reeves closed the laptop with a sharp snap. Mr. Chen, I was brought here under false pretenses. You led me to believe your wife was suffering from pregnancy-induced paranoia, but it appears she's suffering from husband-induced deception. Dr. Reeves, please. David's voice took on a pleading quality Maya had never heard before. You don't understand the whole situation. Maya's been unstable for months. The pregnancy has made her paranoid, jealous. I've been unstable because my husband has been systematically lying to me while planning to steal my child, Maya said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. That's not paranoia. That's a reasonable response to emotional abuse. Victoria moved to stand beside Maya, presenting a united front. Dr. Reeves, I think you should also know that David has been controlling my finances, isolating me from friends and family, and making me dependent on him. Classic patterns of abuse. David's face went white. Victoria, you know that's not. I know exactly what it is, Victoria interrupted. I know you made me believe I was special for accepting a non-traditional relationship when really you were just seeing how much manipulation I'd tolerate. Dr. Reeves was taking notes rapidly. Mr. Chen, I have to say that what I'm observing here suggests that you've been engaging in systematic psychological manipulation of two vulnerable women. This is far from the scenario you described to me. They're working together against me, David said, his voice rising. Can't you see that? They've conspired to make me look like the villain when all I've done is love them both. You've made yourself look like the villain, Maya said. We didn't have to conspire. We just had to tell the truth. David's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face went gray. Problem? Victoria asked with false sweetness. My attorney, David muttered. He says someone's been sending him documents about our case. Maya smiled for the first time that day. Attorney Murphy works fast. You hired a lawyer? David's voice cracked. Maya, you can't be serious. We can work this out. We don't need lawyers, we need protection, Maya said firmly. From you. Dr. Reeves stood up, her briefcase in hand. Mr. Chen, I'll be filing a report with the medical board about the false information you provided. I'll also be recommending that both women seek counseling, not for paranoia, but for trauma recovery from psychological abuse. Dr. Reeves, please. Good evening, Mr. Chen. Ladies, I'd suggest finding a safe place to stay tonight while you sort out the legal aspects of this situation. After Dr. Reeves left, the three of them stood in the living room that had once represented Maya and David's shared dreams. Now it felt like a crime scene. You've destroyed everything, David said quietly. Everything we built together. Everything we could have had. No, Maya said, her hand protective over her stomach. You destroyed it the day you decided we were subjects in your experiment instead of women deserving of honesty. Victoria, David turned to his mistress with desperate eyes. You know I love you. You know this isn't what I wanted. If we could just what? Victoria's voice was sharp. Pretend the last 2 years didn't happen? Pretend you weren't planning to keep us both as your part-time girlfriends while you played house with whoever was more convenient. David sank into the chair that had been his favorite spot to read the newspaper each morning. Maya looked at him, really looked and saw a stranger. How had she never noticed the coldness behind his eyes? The way he catalogued her reactions instead of simply feeling with her? I need you both to leave, Maya said quietly. Tonight. Victoria, you can stay in the guest room if you need somewhere safe. But David, this is my house too, David said, some of his old authority returning. You can't just kick me out. Actually, Maya pulled out her phone. According to Attorney Murphy, I can file a restraining order based on Dr. Reeves' observations tonight. Psychological abuse is grounds for immediate protective orders. David stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. You're not the woman I married. No, Maya agreed. I'm not. The woman you married would have believed your lies. Would have blamed herself for your betrayal. Would have let you convince her she was crazy instead of trusting her own eyes. She paused. But I'm not her anymore. I'm the mother of your child, and I'm going to protect that child from growing up thinking love looks like lies. Victoria spoke quietly from beside her. I'm going to protect my child too. From a father who thinks manipulation is a parenting strategy. For the first time, David seemed to truly understand what he'd lost. Not just two women who loved him, but two women who would now spend the rest of their lives ensuring he could never hurt their children the way he'd hurt them. "You'll regret this," David said, standing up. "Both of you. When you're struggling as single mothers, when you realize how hard it is to raise children alone, you'll remember what you threw away." "Maybe," Maya said. "But our children will never have to wonder if their father's love comes with conditions. They'll never have to question whether they're being told the truth. They'll never have to learn that the person who's supposed to protect them is the person they most need protection from." David looked between them one last time, then walked toward the door. "This isn't over." "Yes," Victoria said firmly, "it is." After the door closed behind him, Maya and Victoria stood in the sudden silence, both processing what had just happened. "I can't believe we did that," Victoria said softly. "I can't believe it took us this long," Maya replied. Victoria laughed, a sound caught between tears and relief. "6 hours ago we were strangers. Now we're what? Co-conspirators. Now we're two women who know exactly what we're worth," Maya said. "And what we're fighting for." Victoria placed her hand on her still flat stomach. "These babies are going to be lucky. They're going to have mothers who never learned to accept less than they deserve." Maya nodded, feeling something like hope beginning to bloom in her chest. David was wrong about one thing. We're not going to struggle as single mothers. No, because we're not going to be single mothers. We're going to be each other's family. Outside, David's car pulled away, taking with it the last remnants of the life Maya had thought she wanted. But looking at Victoria, this brave, smart woman who'd stood up to the man who'd manipulated them both, Maya realized that sometimes the best families weren't the ones you were born into or married into. Sometimes they were the ones you chose to build with the people who understood exactly what you'd survived. 3 hours later, Maya and Victoria sat in Maya's kitchen, surrounded by legal documents, financial statements, and the remnants of takeout containers. Attorney Murphy had arrived with a team of assistants, turning Maya's dining room into a war room for what he called one of the most complex deception cases he'd ever seen. "The good news," Murphy said, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed David's files, "is that we have enough evidence to protect both of you legally. The bad news is that David's been more thorough than we initially thought." Maya looked up from the pregnancy book she'd been stress reading. "What do you mean?" "He's been building a case against you for months, Maya. False medical records, fabricated incidents, carefully documented evidence of emotional instability. If you hadn't found those files tonight, if Dr. Reeves hadn't seen the truth." Murphy shook his head. "He could have had you declared mentally unfit and gained full custody." Victoria set down her cup of tea with shaking hands. "He was going to take Maya's baby? Not just Maya's. Both babies. He's been researching how to establish paternity rights while proving both mothers are unfit to parent." Murphy pulled out a thick folder. "Victoria, he has documentation claiming you're an alcoholic with a history of drug abuse. Maya, he has medical records suggesting you've been struggling with severe depression and suicidal ideation." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. "Those records are fake. I've never been depressed, never been suicidal. We know that now. But David's been very careful about establishing a paper trail that would be convincing to a family court judge who didn't know the truth." Victoria leaned forward. "How is that even possible? How could he create fake medical records?" Murphy's expression was grim. "Because he wasn't working alone." The room fell silent except for the sound of Maya's heart pounding in her ears. "What do you mean he wasn't working alone?" Victoria asked quietly. Murphy pulled out his laptop and opened a file. "David's been paying someone with access to medical databases to create false documentation. Someone with legitimate credentials who could make these fabricated records appear authentic." Maya stared at the screen, reading through a psychological evaluation dated 6 months ago, an evaluation she'd never undergone, describing symptoms she'd never experienced, signed by a doctor she'd never met. "Dr. Patricia Reeves," Maya read aloud. "But she was just here. She saw through David's lies. She defended us." Murphy's face was carefully neutral. "Maya, I need you to think very carefully about tonight. About how convenient it was that Dr. Reeves arrived just when you needed a witness to David's manipulation." Victoria frowned. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Dr. Reeves has been creating false psychological profiles for David's divorce strategy. The consultation fee alone was $50,000. Murphy turned the laptop toward them. She's been documenting Maya's supposed mental deterioration for months, building a case for David to claim sole custody. Maya felt the world spinning around her. But she sided with us tonight. She saw the evidence of David's deception and defended us. Did she? Or did she give you exactly what you needed to hear to make you trust her completely? Victoria stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. This doesn't make sense. Why would she expose David's plan if she was part of it? Because, Murphy said quietly, the plan has evolved. David wasn't supposed to be caught tonight. He wasn't supposed to need Dr. Reeves to witness his manipulation. Something forced his hand, made him accelerate the timeline. Maya's stomach dropped as pieces began clicking into place. The surveillance. Detective Morrison. David knew we'd met at the park before we ever came home. And Dr. Reeves was already on standby, Murphy continued, ready to document Maya's mental breakdown when she discovered the affair. But instead of finding a devastated, isolated woman, she found two women working together with evidence of David's deception. So she switched tactics, Victoria said slowly. Made herself look like our ally instead of our enemy. Murphy nodded. Victoria, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. How did you get Maya's phone number? Victoria turned from the window, her face pale. Someone sent it to me. An anonymous text saying Maya Chen was David's wife, and that she deserved to know the truth. Anonymous from where? I don't know. I assumed it was someone who knew about the affair. Maybe someone from David's office who felt guilty about keeping the secret. Maya felt ice forming in her veins. Victoria, show Murphy the text. Victoria pulled out her phone, scrolling through her messages. Her face went white. It's gone. The text is gone. Check your call log, Murphy instructed. When did you receive it? Victoria's hands were shaking as she scrolled. Yesterday morning. Right after I found out about the pregnancy. But Murphy, the number. It's not in my phone anymore. It's like the conversation never happened. Murphy and Maya exchanged glances. Victoria, that's impossible unless someone with administrative access to your phone account deleted it remotely. Or unless, Maya said, her voice barely a whisper, it was sent by someone who knew it would need to disappear. Victoria sank back into her chair. What are you saying? Maya's mind was racing through everything that had happened, seeing patterns she'd missed before. The timing, Victoria. Think about the timing. You get pregnant and suddenly receive mysterious information about David's wife. I have my ultrasound appointment, and suddenly you want to meet. David comes home early from a dinner that was supposedly canceled. Maya, you're not suggesting. I'm suggesting that everything that happened today was orchestrated. By someone who wanted us to discover the truth, but in a specific way, at a specific time, with specific witnesses present. Murphy pulled out another file. I hate to add to your concerns, but there's something else. Victoria, when you said David's been helping with your rent, how exactly does he make those payments? Direct deposit into my account. Why? Because according to your bank records, those payments haven't been coming from David's personal accounts. They've been coming from an account owned by Reeves Psychological Consulting. Victoria's face went ashen. That's impossible. Victoria, Maya said gently, how long have you actually known David? 2 years. We met at a conference in Chicago. What kind of conference? Victoria hesitated. A psychology conference. I was there representing my graphic design company. We were designing materials for mental health nonprofits. Maya felt the last pieces of the puzzle clicking into place with sickening clarity. Victoria, what's your last name? Castellanos. Victoria Castellanos. Your maiden name or married name? I've never been married. Castellanos is my father's name. Why? Victoria stopped, her eyes widening with realization. Maya turned to Murphy. Look up Dr. Patricia Reeves. Her business partners, her family connections, her professional associates. Murphy's fingers flew across his keyboard. After a moment, his face went grim. Dr. Patricia Reeves. Licensed clinical psychologist. Business partner with Dr. Ricardo Castellanos in a firm specializing in custody evaluations and family court testimony. Victoria, Maya said quietly. Is your father a psychologist? Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. My father's name is Ricardo Castellanos. He's a family therapist in Chicago. But Maya, I swear I didn't know. You didn't know that your father was business partners with the woman who's been creating fake psychological profiles to help my husband steal our children? No. Maya, I swear on my baby's life, I had no idea. Your baby, Maya interrupted, something cold and terrible forming in her chest. Victoria, when exactly did you find out you were pregnant? Yesterday morning. I told you that. And when exactly did you decide to reach out to me? Victoria's face crumpled as she realized what Maya was thinking. Maya, no. You can't think that this was all planned. But Maya was seeing everything with horrible clarity now. A psychologist's daughter who just happens to meet my husband at a conference. Who just happens to fall in love with a married man. Who just happens to get pregnant at the exact moment that would most benefit a custody case. Who just happens to receive anonymous information about David's wife. Maya, please. Who just happens to be the perfect witness to David's manipulation. The perfect ally to make me trust the wrong people. The perfect way to make me vulnerable. Victoria was crying now, reaching for Maya's hands. Maya, you have to believe me. I love David. I loved him. I thought you were the enemy. I thought you were keeping him from me. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me, Maya said, standing up and backing away from Victoria. Whether you meant to or not, you've been part of a plan to destroy my life and steal my child. Murphy cleared his throat. Maya, we need to consider the possibility that Victoria is as much a victim here as you are. If her father has been working with David and Dr. Reeves for 2 years to set up the perfect custody scam, then Victoria's pregnancy isn't an accident. It's insurance. Victoria looked stricken. Insurance for what? For making sure David has multiple children to claim, multiple mothers to discredit, multiple reasons for a family court to believe he's the only stable parent in this situation. The room fell silent as the full scope of the manipulation became clear. David hadn't just been cheating. He'd been running a long-term psychological operation designed to isolate Maya, control Victoria, and position himself as the only fit parent for any children involved. Maya, Victoria said desperately, even if my father is involved, even if this was all planned, my feelings are real. My pregnancy is real. I'm not your enemy. How can I know that? Maya asked, her voice breaking. How can I trust anything you've told me when your family has been orchestrating this entire nightmare? Victoria stood up, her hand protective over her stomach. Because I'm choosing you. Right now, in this moment, I'm choosing to stand with you against all of them. My father, David, Dr. Reeves, all of them. How do I know you're not just following another script? Because, Victoria said, tears streaming down her face, if this was all a script, I wouldn't be telling you this. She pulled out her phone and showed Maya a text message from just 20 minutes ago. Abort mission. Too much evidence exposed. Recommend immediate withdrawal and damage control. RC. That's from my father, Victoria said quietly. He wants me to disappear, to claim I was coerced, to let David and Dr. Reeves handle the fallout. But I'm not going to do that. I'm staying here with you, even if it means destroying my relationship with my family. Maya stared at the message, her mind reeling. Everything she thought she knew about the last few hours was crumbling around her. Maya, Victoria continued, I know I have no right to ask for your trust. I know my family has done horrible things to you. But our babies don't deserve to pay for their fathers' and grandfathers' sins. Maya looked at this woman she'd thought was her ally, then her enemy, then her ally again. Victoria's pregnancy was real. Maya could see it in her face, her protective posture, her desperate fear for her unborn child. But everything else. I need time, Maya said finally. I need time to process this, to figure out what's real and what's manipulation. Time we may not have, Murphy interjected. Because if Dr. Reeves realizes you've discovered the full scope of the conspiracy, she'll accelerate whatever timeline they're working with. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Maya, this is Dr. Reeves. I've been reviewing the documentation from tonight, and I'm concerned about Victoria's influence on your mental state. I think you should know that Victoria Castellanos has a history of manipulating vulnerable women. Can we meet privately tomorrow to discuss your options? PR. Maya showed the message to Victoria, whose face went white. She's trying to turn you against me, Victoria whispered. Even now, even after everything, she's still trying to isolate you. Maya looked at Victoria, really looked at her. She saw fear, yes, but also determination. She saw someone who was genuinely pregnant and genuinely terrified. She saw someone who had just chosen to betray her own family to protect a woman she barely knew. Murphy, Maya said slowly, what's the fastest way to expose this conspiracy before they can implement whatever backup plan they have? Public exposure. Media attention. Make it impossible for them to operate in the shadows. Maya made her decision. Then that's what we're going to do. Victoria, if you're really choosing to stand with me, then we're going to destroy all of them. Your father, Dr. Reeves, David. Everyone who thought they could treat us like chess pieces in their game. Victoria nodded, wiping her tears. What do you need me to do? Help me prove that love, real love, not the manipulated version David was selling, means protecting each other from the people who want to hurt us. Maya pulled out her phone and dialed a number she'd found in Murphy's contacts. Channel 7 News? This is Maya Chin. I have a story about systematic psychological abuse and custody fraud that's going to blow your minds. And I have witnesses. As Maya began explaining the situation to the reporter, Victoria stood beside her, both women finally understanding that their real enemy had never been each other. Their real enemy was a system designed to make women distrust themselves, doubt their perceptions, and turn against each other instead of recognizing their shared oppression. But that system hadn't counted on two pregnant women deciding that their children's futures mattered more than their own fears. The war was far from over. But for the first time, Maya and Victoria were fighting it together, with their eyes wide open to the truth. The Channel 7 News interview was supposed to air the next morning. It never made it to broadcast. Maya discovered this at 3 a.m. when her phone rang, jolting her from the first peaceful sleep she'd had in weeks. Victoria, who had been staying in the guest room, appeared in Maya's doorway as she answered the call. Mrs. Chun. The voice was unfamiliar, professional. This is Detective Sarah Kim with the Metropolitan Police. I'm calling about the allegations you made this evening regarding Dr. Patricia Reeves and Ricardo Castellanos. Maya sat up in bed, immediately alert. What about them? I'm afraid I have some difficult news. Dr. Reeves was found dead in her office 2 hours ago. Apparent suicide. She left behind a note confessing to fraud and apologizing for the damage she'd caused to innocent families. The phone slipped from Maya's hands. Victoria rushed over, picking it up and putting it on speaker. Detective, Victoria said, her voice shaking. This is Victoria Castellanos. What exactly did the note say? There was a pause. Ms. Castellanos, the note specifically mentions you and Mrs. Chun. Dr. Reeves claimed she'd been blackmailed into creating false documentation, and that when she tried to come clean, you both threatened to destroy her career and her family. Maya felt the room spinning around her. That's impossible. We never threatened anyone. The note also states that Mrs. Chun has been displaying signs of severe paranoid delusion, and that Ms. Castellanos has been enabling these delusions for personal gain. Dr. Reeves apparently felt so guilty about not reporting this earlier that she... Detective Kim's voice trailed off. That's convenient, Victoria said sharply. The woman who could expose the conspiracy kills herself and leaves behind a note that makes us look guilty. Ms. Castellanos, I understand you're upset, but I need to inform you both that based on Dr. Reeves' final statement, we're opening an investigation into possible harassment and extortion charges. Maya found her voice. Detective, we have evidence. Evidence that Dr. Reeves' claims was fabricated or misinterpreted due to Mrs. Chen's mental state. I'm sorry, but until we can sort this out, I'm going to have to ask you both to come to the station for questioning. The line went dead. Maya and Victoria stared at each other in the pre-dawn darkness, both realizing that their victory had been transformed into a trap. They killed her, Victoria whispered. My father and David, they killed Dr. Reeves to shut her up. Or she was never really our ally to begin with, Maya said, her voice hollow. Maybe this was always the plan. Get us to trust her, get us to expose ourselves, then have her suicide discredit everything we said. Victoria's phone buzzed with a text from her father. Victoria, what have you done? Dr. Reeves is dead because of the pressure you and that delusional woman put on her. Come home immediately. We can fix this, but only if you distance yourself from Maya Chun right now. Dad. Maya read the message over Victoria's shoulder. He's giving you a way out. What do you mean? Blame everything on me. Say I manipulated you, that my paranoid delusions convinced you to participate in harassing an innocent woman. You walk away clean, I take the fall for everything. Victoria stared at the message, and Maya saw something she'd been dreading, hesitation. For the first time since they'd allied together, Victoria looked like someone considering her options. Maya, Victoria said slowly, what if they're right? What if we push too hard, too fast? What if Dr. Reeves really was trying to help us, and we drove her to? Don't. Maya's voice was sharp. Don't let them get in your head. That's exactly what they want, for us to doubt ourselves, doubt each other. But Victoria was looking at her phone again, reading new messages from her father. Victoria, I've been reviewing the situation with our lawyers. If you cooperate with the investigation, admit that Maya Chin manipulated you into making false accusations, we can protect you and your baby. But if you continue to support her delusions, you'll both go down for harassment, extortion, and possibly involuntary manslaughter. Maya watched Victoria's face as she read, seeing the fear and doubt creeping in. Victoria, look at me. Victoria's eyes were filled with tears. Maya, what if this destroys both of us? What if we lose our babies because we were too stubborn to accept that maybe we were wrong? Wrong about what? Wrong about David lying to us for 2 years? Wrong about the fake medical records? Wrong about the surveillance? Wrong about the conspiracy being bigger than just David, Victoria said quietly. Maybe Dr. Reeves really was trying to help. Maybe my father really is just trying to protect me. Maybe we connected dots that weren't really there. Maya felt something cold and devastating settle in her chest. After everything they'd been through, Victoria was wavering. And Maya couldn't blame her. The pressure, the threats, the possibility of losing everything, including their children. So what are you saying? Maya asked. Victoria's phone rang. Her father's name appeared on the screen. I have to answer, Victoria said. If I don't, it'll look like I'm trying to avoid cooperating with the investigation. Maya nodded, but she felt their alliance cracking. Victoria answered the call and put it on speaker. But Maya could see in her eyes that she was already halfway back to her father's side. Victoria, sweetheart, Dr. Castellanos' voice was warm, paternal, concerned. I'm so sorry you got caught up in this situation. But we need to talk, right now, before this gets any worse. Dad, Victoria, listen to me very carefully. Maya Chin is sick. She's been manipulating you, using your pregnancy hormones and your natural empathy to make you believe in a conspiracy that doesn't exist. Dr. Reeves tried to help her, and Maya's response was to destroy an innocent woman's life. Maya watched Victoria's face, seeing the doubt growing stronger. Dad, you don't understand. David really was lying to both of us. The evidence. What evidence, sweetheart? Some doctored computer files that Maya could have created herself? Some out-of-context messages that could be interpreted multiple ways? Victoria, you're a smart woman, but you're pregnant and vulnerable, and Maya Chin preyed on that vulnerability. Victoria looked at Maya with something that might have been apology. Dad, I need time to think. There is no time, Victoria. The police want to interview you in 2 hours. If you go in there still supporting Maya's story, they're going to charge you as an accessory to harassment and extortion. But if you tell them the truth, that Maya manipulated you into believing her delusions, they'll treat you as a victim instead of a perpetrator. Maya felt the walls closing in around her. Not just the legal walls, but the emotional ones. Victoria was going to abandon her. After everything they'd shared, all the trust they'd built, Victoria was going to choose her family over their alliance. Victoria, Maya said quietly, before you decide, I need to tell you something. Victoria looked at her, and Maya saw guilt and fear warring in her expression. I'm scared too, Maya continued. I'm terrified that we're wrong, that we've destroyed innocent people, that we're going to lose our babies because we trusted each other instead of trusting the people who've been lying to us for years. Maya, but I'm more scared of what happens if we're right and we give up now. If David really has been planning to take our children, if your father really has been helping him build a case against us, then abandoning each other is exactly what they want us to do. Victoria's father's voice cut through the speaker. Victoria, don't let her manipulate you again. Come home. Let us protect you and your baby from this woman's delusions. Maya looked at Victoria, seeing the moment of choice written across her face. Everything they'd built together, everything they'd discovered, everything they'd risked, it all came down to this moment. I understand if you choose them, Maya said softly. I understand if protecting your baby means sacrificing me. But I need you to understand something too. What? If you walk away now, if you let them convince you that I'm the enemy, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you made the right choice. Every time David disappoints you, every time your father's story doesn't quite add up, every time you feel like you're not getting the whole truth, you'll remember this moment. Victoria was crying now, her hand pressed to her stomach. Maya, I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know who to trust. Trust yourself, Maya said. Trust what you felt when you read those messages from David. Trust what you saw in his eyes when he was caught. Trust what you experienced when he tried to manipulate Dr. Reeves into thinking I was crazy. Dr. Castellanos' voice grew more urgent. Victoria, you need to choose right now. Your family and your future, or a delusional woman who's going to drag you down with her. Victoria looked between Maya and the phone, her face a mask of anguish. Dad, I need to call you back. Victoria, don't hang up. Don't let her. Victoria ended the call and turned off her phone. For a moment, Maya felt hope. But then Victoria spoke. I can't do this, Maya. I can't risk my baby for a theory we can't prove anymore. Maya felt something inside her chest shatter. Victoria, I believe you about David. I believe he lied to both of us. But the rest of it, the conspiracy, my father, Dr. Reeves, I can't be sure. And if there's even a chance that we're wrong, if there's even a chance that cooperating with the investigation will protect my baby, you're going to tell them I manipulated you. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. I'm going to tell them the truth. That I was confused, that I was hurt, that I wanted someone to blame for the pain David caused me. And that maybe I let you convince me to see patterns that weren't really there. Maya nodded slowly, feeling the full weight of abandonment settling over her. She was going to face this alone. The legal system, David's manipulation, her own community's judgment, all of it alone. I understand, Maya said, and she meant it. You're protecting your child. I can't fault you for that. Victoria was sobbing now. Maya, I'm so sorry. If there was any other way. There isn't, Maya said quietly. And that's okay. This was always going to be my fight in the end. Victoria gathered her things and left without another word. And Maya was alone in her house with the ghosts of 8 years of marriage and the wreckage of the only real friendship she'd had in years. At 6 a.m., Maya's doorbell rang. Through the window, she could see police cars in her driveway. Detective Kim stood on her doorstep with an arrest warrant. Maya Chin, you're under arrest for harassment, extortion, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You have the right to remain silent. As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Maya looked back at her house, at the nursery she'd painted with David, at the life she'd thought was real, at the future she'd believed was secure. All of it was gone now. Her marriage, her friendship with Victoria, her freedom, possibly even her baby if the courts decided she was unfit to parent. But as the police car pulled away from her driveway, Maya realized something that surprised her with its clarity. She wasn't sorry. Even knowing how it would end, even facing the loss of everything she'd held dear, she wasn't sorry for choosing truth over comfort, for choosing to fight back instead of accepting manipulation. Her child would be born into a world where their mother had refused to be a victim, even when being a victim would have been easier. That would have to be enough. The Riverside County Detention Center was nothing like the jails Maya had seen in movies. No dramatic bars or intimidating guards, just sterile white walls, fluorescent lighting, and the constant hum of institutional air conditioning. Maya sat in the holding cell wearing an orange jumpsuit that smelled like industrial detergent, her hands resting protectively over her still small bump. 14 hours since her arrest. No phone calls allowed until her arraignment. No contact with Attorney Murphy, who had apparently been unavailable when the police tried to reach him. No news from the outside world. Just Maya, her baby, and the growing certainty that she'd been systematically isolated from every possible source of support. The guard appeared at her cell door. Chin, you have a visitor. Maya expected Attorney Murphy, or maybe Victoria coming to apologize. Instead, she found herself sitting across from a woman she'd never seen before, mid-40s, professional but warm, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mrs. Chin, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Warren, and I'm here as an advocate from the Maternal Rights Coalition. I've been following your case. Maya's hopes rose for the first time since her arrest. Someone's been following my case? Your story broke this morning, not on Channel 7, but on social media. Someone leaked the police reports, and the inconsistencies in Dr. Reeves' suicide note are raising a lot of questions. Dr. Warren pulled out a tablet. Maya, I need you to know that you're not alone in this. For the first time in 24 hours, Maya felt like she could breathe. The medical community is in an uproar, Dr. Warren continued. Dr. Reeves' suicide note contained detailed knowledge about falsifying psychiatric records that she shouldn't have had unless she'd actually been doing it. And her supposed confession about being blackmailed? The timeline doesn't work. She was dead before you and Victoria ever went public with your accusations. Maya's heart raced. What are you saying? I'm saying that whoever killed Dr. Reeves and staged her suicide didn't do their homework well enough. They created evidence that actually proves she was part of the conspiracy, not a victim of it. Maya leaned forward. Does this mean? It means you were right about everything. But Maya, that's not why I'm here. Dr. Warren's expression grew serious. I'm here because the prosecutor is offering you a plea deal, and you need to understand what you're really choosing between. Maya's stomach dropped. What kind of plea deal? Admit to harassment and making false accusations. Accept psychological counseling and supervised probation. In exchange, they'll drop the more serious charges and recommend that you retain custody of your baby with court-supervised visitation. And if I don't take it, you go to trial on charges that could result in losing your child completely. Maya, even with the evidence in Dr. Reeves' suicide note working in your favor, trials are unpredictable. Juries don't always side with pregnant women who challenge powerful men. Maya felt the walls closing in again. How long do I have to decide? 2 hours. The arraignment is this afternoon, and they want an answer before then. Maya stared at her hands, feeling the weight of impossible choices. Accept guilt for crimes she didn't commit, or risk losing her baby in a fight she might not win. Dr. Warren, can I ask you something? Of course. If you were in my position, pregnant, alone, facing the possibility of losing your child, what would you do? Dr. Warren was quiet for a long moment. Maya, I can't make this choice for you. But I can tell you what I've learned from working with women in situations like yours for the past 15 years. What's that? The system counts on us being too afraid to fight back. It counts on us choosing the sure thing, even if the sure thing is accepting partial blame for our own victimization, over the uncertain thing of demanding real justice. Maya felt something stirring in her chest, something that felt like anger but cleaner, more focused. The plea deal guarantees you keep your baby, Dr. Warren continued, but it also guarantees that David's tactics work. That men like him learn they can manipulate and control women without real consequences, as long as they're smart enough to set up plausible deniability. And my baby grows up knowing that their mother was officially labeled as a delusional woman who made false accusations against innocent people. Exactly. Maya, what kind of world do you want your child to inherit? One where victims stay quiet to avoid punishment, or one where truth-telling is considered worth the risk? Maya closed her eyes, feeling her baby's presence like a warm weight in her body. She thought about the child she was carrying, about what kind of mother she wanted to be, what kind of lessons she wanted to teach about courage and truth and standing up to bullies. Dr. Warren, if I fight this, if I go to trial, what are my actual chances? Honestly, 50-50 at best. The evidence is on your side, but the system isn't. David has resources, connections, the presumption of being a respectable member of the community. You have the truth, but truth doesn't always win in court. Maya opened her eyes. What do I have beyond the truth? Dr. Warren smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. You have something David never counted on. What's that? You have other women who've been watching your story and recognizing their own. Maya, since your arrest this morning, 17 women have come forward with similar stories about men using psychological manipulation and fake documentation to control them. The Maternal Rights Coalition has been flooded with calls from women who thought they were alone in experiencing this kind of systematic abuse. Maya felt something electric run through her veins. 17 women? And growing. Your willingness to fight back, even when it meant losing everything, has given other women permission to speak their truth too. Maya, you're not just fighting for your baby anymore. You're fighting for a generation of children who deserve to grow up knowing that their mothers refused to be silenced. A guard approached their table. Time's up. Dr. Warren stood, then leaned down to whisper to Maya. There's something else you should know. Victoria Castellanos didn't go through with her testimony against you. Maya's heart stopped. What? She was supposed to meet with prosecutors this morning to give a statement supporting your arrest. She never showed up. Instead, she's been trying to reach you through the jail system, but they've been blocking her calls. Why would they block her calls? Because, Dr. Warren said quietly, Victoria's father has been working with David to ensure you're kept isolated until you take the plea deal. They're afraid that if you two reconnect, you'll remember how strong you are together. Maya felt everything clicking into place. The blocked calls, the unavailable attorney, the rushed plea deal. All of it designed to make her feel abandoned and powerless. Dr. Warren, I need you to get a message to Victoria. What message? Maya stood up, her hand pressed to her stomach, feeling her baby's strength flowing through her. Tell her that I'm not taking the plea deal. Tell her that I'm going to fight this, even if I have to do it alone. And tell her that if she wants to stand with me again, it's not too late. Dr. Warren's eyes shone with something like pride. Maya, are you sure? This choice could cost you everything. No, Maya said, feeling more certain than she'd felt about anything in her entire life. The choice to stay silent would cost me everything. Fighting back, that's the only choice that gives my baby a mother worth having. As Dr. Warren left, Maya returned to her cell with a clarity that surprised her. She'd spent her entire adult life trying to avoid conflict, trying to keep everyone happy, trying to be the perfect wife and daughter-in-law and community member. But perfection was a prison, and she was done being imprisoned by other people's expectations. 2 hours later, Maya stood before Judge Martinez for her arraignment. The prosecutor, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit, presented the plea deal with confident efficiency. Your Honor, Mrs. Chen has been offered a very generous arrangement that takes into account her pregnancy and emotional state. We recommend acceptance to avoid the trauma of a lengthy trial. Judge Martinez looked at Maya. Mrs. Chen, how do you plead to the charges of harassment and making false accusations? Maya looked out into the courtroom gallery and saw Dr. Warren sitting in the front row. No one else, no family, no friends, no Victoria. Just Dr. Warren and her belief that truth was worth fighting for. Your Honor, Maya said, her voice carrying clearly through the courtroom. I plead not guilty to all charges. The prosecutor's confident expression faltered. Your Honor, Mrs. Chen is making a serious mistake. The evidence against her is overwhelming. The evidence, Maya interrupted, will show that I've been the victim of a systematic campaign to discredit and silence me. And I'm prepared to present testimony from multiple women who've experienced similar abuse. Judge Martinez raised an eyebrow. Multiple women? Dr. Warren stood up. Your Honor, the Maternal Rights Coalition would like to request permission to file an amicus brief on behalf of Mrs. Chen and the 17 other women who've come forward with corroborating evidence of this type of psychological manipulation. Maya felt a surge of power unlike anything she'd ever experienced. She wasn't alone. She'd never been alone. She'd just been convinced she was by people who needed her to feel powerless. The prosecutor was whispering urgently with her assistant. Judge Martinez was reviewing documents with growing interest. And Maya was standing in a courtroom, 8 months pregnant, facing down the entire system that had tried to break her, and feeling invincible. Your Honor, Maya said, I'd like to request that my case be fast-tracked to trial. I'm eager to present the evidence that will clear my name and expose the real criminals in this situation. As court adjourned and Maya was escorted back to holding, she felt her baby moving inside her. Strong, determined kicks that felt like applause. She'd made her choice. Now it was time to find out if the truth really was powerful enough to set her free. But first, she had a phone call to make to a woman who'd once been her ally, then her betrayer, and who might, if Maya had read Dr. Warren's message correctly, be ready to become her ally again. Because Maya had learned something in that sterile jail cell. Sometimes the most impossible choice was actually the only possible choice. And sometimes choosing to trust someone who'd hurt you was the bravest thing you could do. Not because they deserved it, but because you deserved to find out who you became when you refused to let fear make your decisions. Maya was about to find out exactly who that person was. Maya's phone call to Victoria went to voicemail, but 30 minutes later, Victoria appeared at the jail's visitor window, not as the uncertain, wavering woman Maya had last seen, but as someone transformed. Her eyes were clear, determined, and blazing with purpose. Maya, Victoria said the moment she sat down, I need to tell you everything. And I mean everything. Maya pressed her hand against the glass. Victoria, what happened? Dr. Warren said you didn't show up to testify against me. I didn't show up because I figured out who's really behind all of this. And Maya, it's so much worse than we thought. Victoria pulled out a thick folder of documents. 3 days ago, after I left your house, my father tried to convince me to testify against you. But something felt wrong about how prepared he was, how quickly he had lawyers and statements ready. So I did something I should have done months ago. What? I broke into his office and copied everything. Maya, my father isn't just David's accomplice. He's been running a network of psychological manipulation for years, targeting women in high-stress situations, pregnancy, divorce, custody battles, and then positioning himself and his associates as expert witnesses to destroy them. Maya felt ice in her veins. How many women? So far, 43 documented cases over the past 5 years. Women who lost custody of their children because my father testified that they were mentally unfit. Women who were institutionalized based on his evaluations. Women who lost everything because they dared to challenge men who were connected to his network. Victoria's voice grew stronger, more furious. Maya, Dr. Reeves wasn't killed to silence her. She was killed because she was trying to expose the whole operation. She'd been documenting everything, building a case against my father and David and at least 6 other men who've been using this system to steal children from their mothers. Maya's mind reeled. 43 women? And their children. Maya, these men have been systematically removing children from mothers who threatened their control, then placing those children with fathers who were either part of the network or could be controlled by it. Victoria slid a photograph through the slot in the glass. This is Sarah Martinez. Ring any bells? Maya stared at the photo, a woman about her age with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Should it? Judge Martinez, the woman who's presiding over your case. That's her daughter Sarah. Sarah lost custody of her 2 children 3 years ago after my father testified that she was suffering from postpartum psychosis and was a danger to herself and others. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Judge Martinez has been compromised. Not compromised. Controlled. Sarah's children live with their father, who happens to be one of David's law school friends. Judge Martinez knows that if she doesn't play along, she'll never see her grandchildren again. Maya felt the full scope of the conspiracy settling over her like a suffocating blanket. Victoria, how do we fight something this big? This organized? Victoria's eyes blazed. We don't fight it through the system, Maya. We expose it to the world in a way that makes it impossible to ignore or cover up. She pulled out her phone. Remember those 17 women Dr. Warren mentioned? I've been in contact with all of them. Plus 26 more who found us through social media. Maya, we have 43 women ready to tell their stories publicly, simultaneously, in a way that can't be suppressed or discredited. What are you talking about? A press conference. Tomorrow morning. Every major news outlet, every social media platform. 43 women, all at once, telling the truth about how this network operates. Including the daughters who were taken from their mothers and are now old enough to speak for themselves. Maya stared at Victoria through the glass, seeing a strength she'd never recognized before. Victoria, if you do this, you'll lose everything. Your father, your family, your financial support. I already lost everything the day I let them convince me to doubt you. Victoria's voice was steady, certain. Maya, I've been thinking about what you said, about the kind of world we want our children to inherit. I don't want my baby to grow up thinking that love means manipulation, that family means control, that women have to choose between truth and survival. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. What about the legal charges against me? Victoria smiled grimly. That's the beautiful part. Once we expose the network publicly, the prosecutor won't be able to maintain the charges without looking like she's part of the cover-up. The evidence against you depends entirely on testimony from people who are about to be revealed as criminals. And David is about to learn what happens when you underestimate the women you've been manipulating. Victoria's voice was ice cold. Maya, he thinks he destroyed us by turning us against each other. He has no idea that he actually gave us something more powerful than he could ever take away. What's that? He gave us each other. And now we're giving that gift to 43 other women who thought they were alone. A guard approached, signaling that visiting time was ending. Victoria, Maya said urgently, I need you to know something. If this goes wrong, if they retaliate, if you lose everything. I won't lose everything, Victoria interrupted. Because I have you, and you have me. And together, we have something they can never destroy. What? The truth. And 43 other women who are done being afraid of it. After Victoria left, Maya returned to her cell with a sense of purpose she'd never experienced. For the first time since this nightmare began, she wasn't waiting for someone else to save her. She was part of saving herself and dozens of other women who'd been victimized by the same system. The next morning, Maya was released on bail that had been posted anonymously, but which she suspected came from the Maternal Rights Coalition's emergency fund. Dr. Warren was waiting outside the jail with a car and a plan. The press conference is in 2 hours, Dr. Warren said as they drove through the city. Are you ready for this? Maya looked out the window at the familiar streets of her hometown, thinking about all the other women who'd driven these same roads while carrying the secret burden of abuse, manipulation, and systematic gaslighting. "I'm ready," Maya said. "But first, I need to make a stop." "Where?" "David's office." It's time he learned that the women he thought he controlled are about to control the narrative. 20 minutes later, Maya walked into David's law office with Dr. Warren and 2 reporters from the investigative team that had been following the story. David's secretary tried to stop them, but Maya simply smiled and said, "I'm David Chen's wife. He'll want to see me." David looked up from his desk as Maya entered, his face cycling through surprise, anger, and calculation before settling on false concern. "Maya, sweetheart, you shouldn't be here. You're out on bail. You need to be resting." "I'm here," Maya said, setting a document folder on his desk, "to give you one chance to cooperate with the investigation into your psychological manipulation network." David's mask slipped completely. "My what?" "The network you've been running with Dr. Ricardo Castellanos and at least 6 other men to systematically remove children from their mothers using fabricated psychological evaluations." David glanced at the reporters, his face going pale. "Maya, I don't know what Victoria has told you, but—" "Victoria didn't tell me anything," Maya interrupted. "Dr. Patricia Reeves told me. Before she died. She documented everything, David. Every fabricated report, every manipulated evaluation, every stolen child." This was a lie, but Maya had learned something important from David's own playbook. Sometimes you had to manipulate the manipulator to get to the truth. David's face went white. "That's impossible. Patricia destroyed everything before she—" He stopped, realizing he'd just admitted knowledge of Dr. Reeves' activities. "Before she what, David?" Maya asked quietly. "Before she killed herself? Or before someone killed her to keep her from exposing your network?" "I don't have to listen to this," David said, reaching for his phone. "I'm calling my lawyer." "You should," Maya agreed. "Because in about 30 minutes, 43 women are going to hold a press conference exposing everything you've done. You'll want legal representation when the FBI starts investigating federal charges for conspiracy and child trafficking." David dropped his phone. "Child trafficking? Maya, you've lost your mind. This is exactly the kind of paranoid delusion that proves you're unfit to be a mother?" Maya finished. "David, I've learned something important over the past few days. The only thing that makes a woman unfit to be a mother is accepting that the people who abuse her children should be protected from consequences." Maya stood up, her hand protective over her stomach. "Our baby is going to grow up knowing that their mother fought an entire corrupt system to protect them. What are they going to know about their father?" David's face crumpled as the full scope of his situation became clear. "Maya, please. You don't understand the pressure I was under, the expectations." "I understand," Maya said, "that you chose to hurt innocent women and children rather than face those pressures honestly. And I understand that you're about to face consequences for that choice." As Maya left David's office with Dr. Warren and the reporters, she felt lighter than she had in months. Not because her problems were solved, the legal battle was far from over, but because she'd finally stopped carrying the weight of David's lies and manipulation. The press conference was held in the park where Maya and Victoria had first met as enemies and chosen to become allies. 43 women stood together, some with their children who'd been returned to them, others fighting for children still trapped in the system, all of them united by their refusal to stay silent. Maya and Victoria stood at the center, holding hands as Victoria spoke into the microphones. "My name is Victoria Castellanos, and my father is Dr. Ricardo Castellanos. For the past 5 years, he has been running a network designed to steal children from their mothers by fabricating evidence of mental illness and parental unfitness." The crowd of reporters and supporters was silent, hanging on every word. "I know this because I was recruited into the network without realizing it. I was told to seduce a married man named David Chen, get pregnant with his child, and serve as a witness to his wife's mental instability. I was told this would help create a stable family for both children involved." Victoria's voice grew stronger. "Instead, I discovered that David Chen and my father were planning to take both children away from both mothers and place them in a shared custody arrangement that gave them complete control over our lives." Maya stepped forward. "My name is Maya Chen, and I'm 8 months pregnant with David Chen's child. For the past week, I've been arrested, charged with crimes I didn't commit, and told by every authority figure in my life that I was delusional for believing my own eyes and ears." Her voice carried across the park, strong and clear. I'm here to tell other women who've been told they're crazy, paranoid, or unfit. Trust yourself. Trust your perceptions. Trust your instincts about the people who claim to love you while systematically destroying your ability to trust yourself. One by one, the other women stepped forward to tell their stories. Mothers who'd lost custody based on fabricated evidence. Women who'd been institutionalized for refusing to accept abuse. Daughters who'd been separated from their mothers and were now old enough to speak about what they'd endured. As the press conference concluded, Maya and Victoria stood together watching the reporters disperse to file stories that would appear on every major news outlet within hours. "We did it," Victoria said softly. "We survived it," Maya corrected. "Now we get to build something better." Victoria smiled, her hand joining Maya's on her stomach. "What are we building?" Maya looked around the park, at the other women exchanging contact information, at the reporters already making calls to follow up on the story, at Dr. Warren coordinating with legal advocates from across the country. "We're building a world where our children never have to choose between truth and safety," Maya said. "Where love doesn't require silence. Where being a good mother means teaching your children that some things are worth fighting for, even when fighting costs everything." As the sun set over the park, Maya felt her baby moving inside her, strong, determined movements that felt like celebration. In a few weeks, she'd give birth to a child who would inherit a very different world than the one she'd grown up in. A world where women believed each other, where truth was valued over comfort, where the cost of speaking up was finally outweighed by the cost of staying silent. It wasn't the life Maya had planned, but as she stood with Victoria and the other women who'd become her unexpected family, she realized it was a much better life than the one she'd been settling for. And their children, all of their children, would inherit something precious. The knowledge that they came from women who refused to be victims, even when being a victim would have been easier. That legacy was worth every sacrifice they'd made to claim it. 6 months later, Maya pushed the double stroller through Riverside Park, watching 2-month-old Elena reach for the autumn leaves while 3-month-old Sophia slept peacefully beside her. The same park where she'd once sat as David's naive wife, where she'd met Victoria as an enemy, where they'd held the press conference that changed everything. But this time, Maya wasn't alone with her thoughts and fears. Victoria walked beside her, pointing out the ducks to Elena, who gurgled with delight at every new sight. "The reporter from the Washington Post called this morning," Victoria said, adjusting Sophia's blanket. "The federal investigation has expanded to 12 states now. They've identified over 200 women who were targeted by networks similar to my father's." Maya felt a familiar mix of satisfaction and sadness. "Any word on reunifications?" 67 children have been returned to their mothers so far. Judge Martinez's daughter Sarah gets her kids back next week. The judge testified against the network in exchange for immunity and her daughter's case being reopened. They reached the bench where they'd first sat together, enemies bound by their shared betrayal. Now they sat as mothers, partners in a chosen family that had grown far beyond what either could have imagined. "Maya," Victoria said quietly, "do you ever regret it? The choice to fight instead of taking the easy way out." Maya looked at Elena, whose dark eyes were exactly like David's but filled with curiosity and joy instead of calculation. "Never. Even on the hardest days, even when the legal bills pile up and the nightmares come back, never." Victoria nodded, understanding completely. The past 6 months hadn't been easy. The legal battles, the media attention, the threats from people who wanted them to stay quiet. But they'd also brought incredible rewards. "Speaking of legal bills," Victoria said with a smile, "the Victim Compensation Fund approved our applications. The settlement from the civil suit against my father's practice should cover college funds for both girls." Maya laughed. Justice and financial security. Sometimes the universe actually works the way it should. Their phones buzzed simultaneously, a text from Dr. Warren. "Press conference tomorrow at 2 p.m. 3 more states launching investigations. Your story is still changing the world. Elizabeth." Maya looked at the message, then at their daughters, then at Victoria. "Are you ready to be public advocates again? With these two as our motivation?" Victoria gestured to Elena and Sophia. "I'm ready for anything." A familiar figure approached across the park. A woman in her 30s with 2 young children, walking hesitantly toward their bench. "Excuse me," the woman said. "Are you Maya Chun and Victoria Castellanos?" Maya and Victoria exchanged glances. They'd grown accustomed to being recognized, but it still felt surreal. "Yes," Maya said gently. "How can we help you?" My name is Jennifer Walsh. I saw your press conference 6 months ago, and she paused, gathering courage. I've been living the same nightmare. My ex-husband has been working with a psychologist to document my mental instability. They're trying to take my son. Victoria stood up, extending her hand. Jennifer, you're not alone anymore. And you're not too late to fight back. Maya watched as Victoria guided Jennifer to sit beside them, immediately offering the combination of practical advice and emotional support that had become second nature to both women. This happened at least twice a week now. Women finding them, asking for help, discovering that their individual nightmares were part of a larger pattern that could be disrupted. The most important thing, Maya said to Jennifer, is to document everything. Every conversation, every interaction, every attempt to make you doubt your own perceptions. And remember, Victoria added, that when people try to convince you you're crazy, it's usually because you're seeing something clearly that they need you to ignore. As they talked with Jennifer, explaining the legal resources available and connecting her with other mothers who'd fought similar battles, Maya felt the familiar satisfaction of turning her trauma into purpose. Elena reached up from the stroller, and Maya lifted her daughter into her lap. Elena immediately grabbed for Maya's necklace, a simple silver pendant that Victoria had given her for her birthday, engraved with the words "Truth Teller." "What do you think, baby girl?" Maya asked Elena. "Ready to help another mama find her strength?" Elena babbled happily, as if she understood exactly what her mother was asking. After Jennifer left with a folder full of resources and 3 new phone numbers of women who'd successfully fought similar cases, Maya and Victoria continued their walk through the park. "I have something to tell you," Victoria said as they approached the fountain where David had once proposed to Maya. Maya looked at her, concerned by Victoria's serious tone. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about our living situation. About the future. About what we want for the girls as they grow up." Maya felt a flutter of anxiety. Victoria had been living in Maya's guest room since the girls were born, co-parenting in a way that felt natural and right, but hadn't been formally defined. "Are you thinking about moving out?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Victoria stopped walking and turned to face Maya directly. "I'm thinking about making it official. The house, the family, the partnership. Maya, I want to adopt Elena legally, and I want you to adopt Sophia. I want us to be a real family, officially and completely." Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. "Victoria, are you sure? That's a huge commitment." "Maya, we've already been through hell together and come out stronger. We've raised each other's children for 2 months, supported each other through the hardest period of our lives, and built something beautiful out of the wreckage David tried to create." Victoria's voice was steady, certain. "I can't imagine a life where we're not family." Maya looked at Elena, then at Sophia sleeping peacefully in the stroller, then at Victoria, this incredible woman who'd started as her enemy and become her anchor. "Yes," Maya said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, I want that too. I want us to be officially, legally, completely each other's family." Victoria smiled, pulling Maya into a hug that somehow managed to include both babies. "Good. Because I already called Attorney Murphy about filing the paperwork." As they stood by the fountain, holding each other and their daughters, Maya thought about the woman who'd sat in Dr. Rodriguez's office 8 months ago, devastated by her husband's betrayal and terrified of facing the truth alone. That woman had believed she needed David to have a family, had thought love required sacrifice and silence, had been willing to accept half a life if it meant avoiding conflict. This woman, the mother, the truth teller, the woman who'd learned to trust herself above all others, knew better. Family wasn't about blood or marriage certificates, or meeting other people's expectations. Family was about choosing each other, day after day, especially when choosing each other was difficult. Love wasn't about avoiding conflict. It was about facing conflict together and emerging stronger. And truth wasn't something to fear. It was the foundation on which everything real and lasting was built. "Maya," Victoria said softly, "there's something else." "What?" "David wants to see Elena." Maya felt her protective instincts flare, but not with the same terror she would have felt months ago. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that when Elena is old enough to decide for herself whether she wants a relationship with him, we'll support whatever choice she makes. But until then, supervised visitation only, with a court-appointed guardian present." Maya nodded. "What about Sophia?" "David signed away his parental rights to Sophia completely. He wants nothing to do with a child who isn't really his." Victoria's voice was bitter, but not broken. His loss. Sophia gets to grow up with a father figure who actually chooses to love her. Maya looked confused. Father figure? Victoria grinned. Dr. Warren is getting married next month. To a wonderful woman named Sarah who happens to be a pediatric nurse and who's already completely in love with both girls. They've asked if we'd like to be part of their extended family network. Maya felt her heart expanding to accommodate even more love, more possibilities, more ways of defining family that had nothing to do with conventional expectations. Victoria, are we building some kind of radical family commune? Maya, we're building exactly the kind of family our daughters deserve. One where love multiplies instead of divides. Where adults model healthy relationships instead of toxic ones. Where children grow up knowing they're surrounded by people who chose them, not people who feel obligated to them. As the sun began to set over the park, Maya and Victoria packed up the stroller and headed home. To Maya's house that was becoming their house, to the life they'd built from the ashes of their separate devastations. Elena was fussing slightly, and Sophia was beginning to stir from her nap. Soon they'd be home for dinner, bath time, story time, all the ordinary rituals of family life that felt extraordinary because they'd been chosen rather than assumed. Victoria, Maya said as they reached the parking lot. Do you think we're done? With the advocacy, the legal battles, the public speaking. Victoria considered this as she strapped Sophia into her car seat. I don't think we'll ever be completely done. There are too many women out there who need to know they're not alone. Too many children who need protection from systems designed to silence their mothers. But our part in it might evolve. Our part will definitely evolve. Right now, we're the women who survived and exposed the system. But Elena and Sophia are going to grow up to be women who never doubted their right to be believed. They're going to change the world in ways we can't even imagine. Maya smiled, thinking about the daughters they were raising. Children who would never accept gaslighting as love, manipulation as care, or silence as the price of peace. They're going to be forces of nature, Maya said. They already are, Victoria replied. Look who they chose as mothers. As they drove home through the familiar streets of their town, streets that no longer felt like a trap but like the foundation of a life they'd consciously chosen, Maya thought about the question she'd been asked at that first press conference. What did this story teach you? It taught her that the truth was always worth telling, even when telling it cost everything she thought she wanted. It taught her that the people who love you don't ask you to doubt your own perceptions. It taught her that sometimes the most broken things, marriages, friendships, trust, needed to be completely destroyed before something beautiful could be built in their place. But most importantly, it taught her that she was strong enough to protect the people she loved, even when protecting them meant standing alone against systems designed to silence her. Maya Chin was no longer anyone's victim. She was Elena's mother, Sophia's chosen mother, Victoria's family, and her own advocate. And that was more than enough. The next morning, Maya woke to the sound of both babies babbling to each other across the room they shared, and Victoria making coffee in the kitchen downstairs. Sunlight streamed through windows that looked out on a garden they'd planted together, vegetables and flowers growing side by side in carefully tended rows. This was the life she'd never imagined wanting, messy, complicated, built from trauma and triumph in equal measure. But as she listened to her daughter's happy chatter and smelled Victoria's perfect coffee drifting up the stairs, Maya realized she'd never been happier. Her phone buzzed with a message from a number she didn't recognize. My name is Amanda Rodriguez. I saw your story and I need help. My husband says I'm paranoid, but I know he's lying about something. Can we talk? Maya smiled, looking at the message that proved their work was far from over. There was another woman out there who needed to learn that her perceptions were valid, her voice mattered, and her children deserved a mother who refused to be silenced. Maya typed back quickly. Amanda, you're not alone. And you're not too late to trust yourself. Can you meet this afternoon? I have some people I'd like you to meet. As Maya headed downstairs to start another day of motherhood, advocacy, and the beautiful chaos of chosen family, she realized that David had been wrong about one crucial thing. He'd thought destroying her marriage would destroy her completely. Instead, it had set her free to discover who she really was, and who she was capable of becoming. What did this story teach you about trusting your own perceptions when everyone around you says you're wrong? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world. This story reminds us that sometimes the most devastating betrayals become the doorways to our most authentic lives. Maya and Victoria's journey from enemies to chosen family shows us that truth-telling, even when it costs everything, is the foundation on which real love and lasting change are built. Their daughters will grow up knowing that women who support each other are unstoppable, that love multiplies when it's freely chosen, and that the courage to speak truth to power can transform not just individual lives, but entire systems designed to silence the vulnerable. And somewhere in your own life, there might be a truth waiting to be told, a perception waiting to be trusted, a voice waiting to be heard, even if speaking up feels impossible right now. Maya and Victoria's story continues every time another woman decides to believe her own eyes, trust her own voice, and choose the difficult truth over the comfortable lie. What truth is waiting for you to find the courage to speak it?